A very good afternoon to all my dear students. So welcome to today's session for chapter number 4, which is audit evidence. So how are you all students? And just to inform you that the chat has been disabled on Zoom. You can send in your queries on the BOS app. And in the last 15 minutes, the chat will be enabled. So uh, if you want to, send your queries on Zoom, then at that time you can send in all your queries, right? So students, in the last session, I have given you some homework. That is, you were supposed to go through the module in entirety till where we have read. Plus, before coming for the session, you were supposed to go through the essays that we are supposed to cover today. That is essay 505 that we have started in the last session, though we were not able to complete. Then essay 510 and essay 550. So I hope you all have, just gone through the module once. Quickly send in your replies. So let us start with essay 505. So essay 505 is with respect to external confirmation. The name of essay 505 is external confirmation. And I told you that all the essays in the 500 series, basically we are, obtaining audit evidence by performing one or the other audit procedure. So in essay 505, we are obtaining an audit evidence by performing the procedures with respect to external confirmation, right? So in the last session, we have discussed that external confirmation is basically an audit evidence obtained as a direct written response to the auditor from the third party in writing, in paper form, or electronic, or any other medium, right? So, direct written response to the auditor from the third party, right? And in paper form or electronic form or any other medium. And if you remember, we also discussed about the reliability of audit evidence, and the generalizations with respect to reliability of audit evidence is that the reliability of audit evidence increases when it is obtained from an independent source. So there are two types of confirmation request: positive confirmation request and the negative confirmation request. So IT, I don't know, but I'm getting messages that I'm mute, and students are also saying that they cannot hear me. So please look into this. Uh, Positive confirmation request means a confirmation request that is sent to the third party by the auditor, whereby it is requested that the response should come directly to the auditor, indicating whether the third party, the confirming party, it agrees or disagrees with the information that is given in the request, or to provide the requested information. And in the last session, we have discussed about the various examples with respect to positive and negative confirmation, whereby I told you that, let's say, X and Y are the debtors of our client, right? So 2X, let's say the confirmation request that is sent is, what is the balance of ABC Limited in your book? So basically it is a blank confirmation request, positive confirmation request, because the replies, the responses are definitely required, right? Then in case of Y, let's say the confirmation request send is in the format that, please tell me whether the balance is 4 lakhs or not. So here also, the party, that is Y, is required to reply whether it agrees or disagrees, right? So positive confirmation requires the responses in all cases to provide the information and whether it agrees or disagrees if information has been mentioned, right? Now, negative confirmation request is what? Whereby a request is sent to the confirming party, first of all, to respond directly to the auditor, right? And then to reply only if, the keyword here is only if the confirming party disagrees with the information provided in the request. So let's say Z is another, debtor of the client, and we are sending the confirmation request in the format that kindly reply the balance of your balance in our books of our client is 50,000. Please reply only if you disagree, right? So this is a negative confirmation request. And on this, many of you send me a query that, ma'am, in that case, negative confirmation is not reliable. So yes, you all are, your understanding is clear. Why negative confirmation is not reliable here, and then what to do in such a case, we will discuss just at the end of this discussion relating to SA 505, right? Now the next term, so these were the topics that we have already discussed in our last session so far as SA 505 is concerned. Now is the discussion relating to new topics that we didn't discuss in the last session relating to SA 505, right? So SA 505 also contains the definition of the term non-response, right? So tell me, if I have forwarded any of the confirmation requests to X and Y, right? And I did not receive any reply from X or Y. Tell me, will it amount to non-response? Yes or no? So, Kevin, I hope it is clear. Students, I hope you are now able to uh, listen to my voice. So, if X and Y have been sent the confirmation request from the auditor, but the response is not received, will it lead to non-response? So Priyanka is saying, yes, ma'am, it's a non-response. Others also please reply. Right? So my next question to you is, so now when you will be sending me answers, just send to and your answer. In case Z is not sending the reply, so in case the response from Z is not received by the auditor, will it 100% amount to non-response? So with respect to first case, Rajita, Tannu, Priyanka are saying yes, which is absolutely correct. Kevin, your answer is not correct. So far as Y is concerned, Y I'll just discuss. So send me the reply for my second query to you. That is, if no reply is received from Z, will it lead to non-response? So Priyanka is saying no. Sunil is saying no. Sejal is saying no. Tanvi saying no, which is absolutely correct. So student, what is a non-response? So see, in case of positive confirmation request, a response is required in all cases. So whether in a case of Y also, whether Y agrees or disagrees with the information that is mentioned in the confirmation request, a response is required. So the confirmation request that is sent to Mr. Y is what? Whether the amount is 4 lakhs or not. So if the amount is 4 lakhs, Y will send a reply that the amount is 4 lakhs in our books of accounts also. If it is not 4 lakhs, then also Mr. Y is going to reply because it is a positive confirmation request. A response is positively required, right? Same way with respect to X, we we as auditors, we want a reply because here though it is what blank confirmation request, that is we are not mentioning the amount as such, right? Is it clear? So Kevin, is your doubt is your understanding clear with respect to non-response of positive confirmation? So if we just go through the definition of non-response, so just try to see that it is divided into two parts. So a failure of the confirming party to respond or fully respond to a positive confirmation request. So, abhi I'm just discussing this. So, a failure of the confirming party to respond or fully respond to a positive confirmation request. So let's say with respect to X, what is the balance of ABC Limited in your books? Plus another question is asked as to what are the terms and conditions. So we will see that not only the amount the auditor can confirm by sending the confirmation request, auditor can also confirm other things like the terms. What are the terms and conditions? Are there any side agreements? So that we are going to discuss, right? So now consider a situation whereby to Mr. X, the confirmation request is to specify as to what is the balance and then to specify the terms and conditions. Now read this definition. A failure of the confirming party, so Mr. X, to respond or fully respond to a positive confirmation request. So let's say Mr. X has sent a reply to only one part and not the other. So not fully responded, right? To a positive confirmation request. Or let's say here, Mr. Y is not responding. So this will amount to non-response, right? But in case of negative confirmation request that has been sent to Mr. Y, we have asked that has been sent to Mr. Z. We have asked Mr. Z to send in the reply only if he disagrees. So if he's agreeing with this balance of 50,000, he's not going to reply, right? So that is why the second part of the definition, now read the second part of the definition with me. It says, so non-response is a confirmation request returned undelivered, right? So be it positive confirmation request or negative confirmation request, if it is returned undelivered, what does that imply? You have forwarded the confirmation request, be it positive or negative, but you received it back undelivered. So it can imply that such kind of debtor, let's say in our case, so such debtor is not existing. It is, let's say, a fake address, right? So it will lead to what? Non-response, right? So that is why in the second point, it is not mentioned positive or negative. So with respect to both positive or negative, if it is it is returned undelivered, it means it is a non-response. Or in case of positive confirmation, the failure of the confirming party, Mr. X or Y, to respond or fully respond to a positive confirmation request, it will also lead to what? Non-response. So I'll repeat here again, why a response from Mr. Z will not be considered as non-response? Because we have mentioned, we have sent him a negative confirmation request only, whereby we have asked him to reply only if he disagrees. So if he's not replying or he's not responding, it means that he agrees, right? Is it clear now? Kevin, is your doubt clear? And others also, please reply. Is the definition of the term non-response clear? So as I always tell you students that you are supposed to learn, but learn after understanding. So now a picture should be there in your mind that first part of the definition says that with respect to positive confirmation request, failure of the confirming party to respond or to fully respond, right? And the second part says any of the confirmation requests, if it is delivered, if it is returned undelivered. So Rihanna is saying clear, Kevin saying clear, Priyanka saying clear, Julie saying clear, Tanu, Rajita, Ayush is saying, ma'am, crystal clear. So that is really very good, right? Now, what will be the definition of the term exception? So as the name suggests, exception means if there is any difference between what? The information that is there in the books of accounts and the response that has been received, or the information that is mentioned in the confirmation request or the response that has been received. Now let us try to understand this with the help of the example that we are discussing here. So let us now with respect to Y. So it is mentioned whether the balance is 4 lakhs or not. So if we receive a reply from Mr. Y and it mentions that the balance is 5 lakhs. So it is what? An exception. So now read with me. A response that indicates a difference between the information requested to be confirmed or contained in the entity's records and the information provided by the confirming party. So the confirming party provides here that the information is 5 lakhs. However, the information that is requested to be confirmed is what? 4 lakhs, right? So this is the difference. Or let's say with respect to X, how can we understand this exception? So let's say the balance of, X limited in books of ABC Limited, though it is not mentioned in the request, let's say it is 10 lakhs. But when Mr. X send a response, he has sent a response of 10 lakh, 11 lakhs, right? So now there is a difference between 10 lakhs and 11 lakhs, right? Now read this definition with me. A response that indicates a difference between the information contained in the entity's records and information provided by the confirming party. Okay? And now tell me, will a response to negative confirmation will will be an exception? A response to negative confirmation, will it be an exception? Yes, Sejal, your understanding is clear. So yes, right? Because with respect to with respect to negative confirmation, the request is what? You need to reply only if you disagree. And disagreement is what is an exception is, right? So if we receive a response to any of the negative confirmation, it is an exception only. And the last line says that the exception needs to be assessed to the entire population after analyzing the reason for difference. So let's say out of 1 lakh, trade debtors, let's say 5,000 trade debtors have been selected on sample basis, right? And to all those 5,000, the confirmation request has been sent. Out of that 5,000, let's say the exception are 10. So now, if 10 is the exception with respect to 5,000 population, what will be the exception with respect to the entire 1 lakh, right? So that is why the last line says the exception needs to be assessed to the entire population after analyzing the reason for difference. See, if it is an exceptional case, if it is a, let's say there is a mismatch, but after inquiry with the management, the same is resolved, right? So that may not be considered while projecting the results on the entire population, right? So, Sejal, yes, Sejal, you are correct. Kevin, correct. Ayush, Ayushin, Ayush Singh, correct. Rihanna, correct. See, Kevin, this is one of the audit evidence. So, students, Kevin's query is that uh, if the reply that he receives from the debtor is different from other audit evidence that he has already, gathered. So see, if there is a difference, there is an inconsistency between the evidence that has been received or inconsistency between one audit evidence and the other. If you remember, we have done this topic earlier, that in that case, auditor is going to perform alternate procedures, right? And ultimately, after applying his professional judgment, after inquiring with the management, still auditor is unable to obtain sufficient appropriate audit evidence, or he concludes that the financial statement present has a material misstatement, then he can consider the effect on the audit report, right? Kevin, are you clear with your doubt? And Sejal, you also. So I hope these four definitions are clear to you. Positive confirmation request, negative confirmation request, non-response, and exception. Quickly send in your replies, right? Now, what is the external confirmation procedure? So, very simple. First of all, you determine as to what information you want to, confirm, whether it is the balance that you want to confirm with respect to, let's say, debtors, or is it some information with respect to creditors, or is it the terms of agreement, or is it a particular transaction that you want to confirm, right? And absence of certain condition. So an example that has been given in your module with respect to absence of certain condition is, so let's say the auditor asks the third party that please tell me, are there any other agreements except for this XYZ agreement? So let's say any sales is there, right? With respect to this, a sales contract is there, which the auditor is having. But it might be possible that auditor has been provided with a sales agreement, which is, correct in all ways. However, the company might have entered into another agreement with the same party whereby some extra discounts or some extra terms and conditions might have been specified, which is not shown to the auditor, right? So absence of certain condition may, you will see that the example that is given in your module is absence of side agreements. So I hope what is meant by side agreements is clear to all of you, that it should not happen that apart from the main agreement, there are side agreements which are not shown to the auditor, right? So not only the balance, so and in fact with respect to balance also, the auditor may ask the third party that please tell me what is the balance as on the last date, or what is the balance with respect to a particular invoice or with respect to a particular transaction, right? So auditor may ask that such information. So this is what the procedure says. First of all, auditor will determine as to what information he wants to confirm, right? It can be account balance, any element, terms of agreement, contracts, transaction. I hope absence of certain conditions is clear. Okay. Then the second point is with respect to selecting the appropriate confirming party. See, tell me, if I send a confirmation request and the same is addressed to the HR department of X in our case, right? Or the marketing department of Y, the examples that we have taken. So these are not the appropriate confirming party. Na? So the relevance and reliability of any of the confirmation responses to confirmation request, it really depends upon the appropriate confirming party, whether that party is knowledgeable or not, knowledgeable about the matter that has been asked, right? So for example, in case of financial institution, the financial institution official who is knowledgeable about that transaction or arrangement, he is the appropriate, or he or she is the appropriate confirming party. So the auditor will have to see, he will have to select the appropriate confirming party. So this is very logical now, that first of all, you will determine as to what information you want to, confirm, right? Then you will see who will be the appropriate confirming party. Simple. Then the third point is having decided as to what information you want to confirm, from whom you want to confirm, you are going to design the confirmation request, right? And students, designing of confirmation request is really very, very important. Tell me, let's say now you are not the auditor. Let's say you are one of the, let's say the accounts head of X Limited. Hana? In our case, we have discussed that ABC Limited ka audit is going on and one of the debtors is X Limited. Now tell me, if you receive a confirmation request, so I am giving you two situations, you just send in one or two, which one, in which situation you are definitely going to reply, right? Or your chances of replying is more, one or two. So in the first situation, you get a confirmation request which is handwritten and it is not neither signed, no authorization by the management is there. You just received a confirmation request from the auditor of ABC Limited that please tell what is the balance, and no signatures are there and it is just handwritten, right? It is not a formal letter, right? This is first situation. Take a second situation whereby you are the accounts head of X Limited and you get a letter which is, typed, whereby the authorization of management of ABC Limited is also mentioned, and it is properly drafted as to who is going to reply, what is the information that is been required, and even if it is a blank confirmation, it is with proper authorization, proper signatures, you know. Tell me, in which situation your chances of replying is more? Is it one or two? Is it one or two? So all of you are saying two, right? So designing the confirmation request is definitely going to affect the response rate, whether the third party, whether the confirming party is going to reply or not, right? And it is going to impact the reliability and nature of the audit evidence, right? So see how the confirmation has been written. Are the questions clear? Or whatever information is to be given, is it given in a proper way, right? So all these things, designing of the confirmation request, they are going to have an impact on the response rate and the reliability and nature of audit evidence, right? So clear, right? Now, what are the factors that are to be considered when you are designing the confirmation request. Now you are not the accounts head of X Limited, you are the auditor, right? Now tell me, let's say you are drafting a confirmation request. What are the factors that you are going to consider? So first of all, you will see as to what assertion you want to, confirm. Is it the valuation, let's say with respect to any debtors, or is it with respect to existence of the debtors as on 31st March, or is it with respect to a particular transaction, right? So the assertion that is been addressed, right? Then the risk of material misstatement, including fraud risks. Tell me, where the risk of material misstatement is high, will you send the positive confirmation request or the negative confirmation request? Quickly send in your reply. Where the risk of material misstatement is high, you are going to send the positive confirmation request or the negative confirmation request. Send in your replies. Positive. Ayush, Almas, absolutely correct. So see, design, when you're designing the confirmation request, this factor also you are going to consider now, because in designing it, whether it is a positive or it is a negative confirmation request, that will also be considered, right? So the risk of material misstatement, the layout and presentation of confirmation request, prior experience on the audit or similar engagement. So if auditor has a prior experience that in most of the cases the debtors do not reply, so in that case the auditor is going to send positive confirmation request only now. Method of communication, whether it will be through mail or the same will be sent by speed post. Management authorization or encouragement to the confirming party to respond to the auditor. So a general tendency is that if the third party looks at the authorization at the confirmation request letters, and if there is a management authorization, then obviously the confidence of the third party in replying increases, right? So confirming parties may be willing to respond to a confirmation request containing the management authorization. Clear? Then the ability of the intended party to confirm or provide the requested information. See, let's say if you ask the accounts department, or let's say the accounts head of the X Limited, that tell me what is the balance on 31st March 2025 of ABC Limited in your books. You'll just open the system, be it SAP or Tally, and just see, okay, this is the amount, and he'll just send in a reply. Now, vis-a-vis a situation whereby you ask him that, okay, tell me what is the amount of the invoices as on this date, this date. So, see, replying to the first situation is appearing to be more easy for the um, third party. So ability of the intended confirming party to confirm or provide the requested information. So example that is given is individual invoice amount versus total balance. Total balance mein to aap quickly you can just see. However, invoice wise, it may be difficult. So when the auditor is designing the confirmation request, these are the factors that he is going to consider. Now you can always get a 3 or 4 mark question that you are working as the auditor of ABC Limited, and you have decided to send confirmation request to the debtors, whereby the amount is exceeding rupees, let's say 50,000. What are the factors that you are going to consider when you are designing the confirmation request, right? So what are the assertion, the risk of material misstatement, layout, presentation, prior experience, right? Method of communication, the management's authorization, and the ability of the intended party to confirm or provide the requested information, right? So I hope these factors are clear. Quickly send in your replies. And what information to ask, it all depends upon auditor's professional judgment, students. So whenever I give you two situation, I say in first situation, this is the first situation vis-a-vis second situation. So basically, first situation is this, and as compared to the first situation, second is this. Priyanka, is it clear? Okay. Now, the positive confirmation request. So when the auditor is designing the confirmation request, Another important thing that will come to his mind, whether it will be a positive confirmation request or will it be a negative confirmation request. So though we have discussed about positive confirmation request in detail, but let me just take you through this. Now do you all know that positive confirmation request means that a reply in all cases is required, right? So the request asks the confirming party to reply the cases in all to reply the auditor in all cases by indicating the confirming party agreement with the given information. So whether it is 4 lakhs or not, or asking confirming party to provide the information, that is what is the balance. Clear? Right? Now, tell me whether a response to positive confirmation request more reliable or whether a response to negative confirmation request. So whether sending a positive confirmation request will give a more reliable audit evidence or the negative confirmation request. Quickly send in your replies. Which one is more reliable? So Julie, your query is not clear to me. What exactly you want to understand with respect to which point is your query? So send in that again. Send in your query again. So tell me, with respect to positive confirmation request or the negative confirmation request, which uh, response to which of these will be more reliable? So Ayush is saying positive, Kevin saying, Alma is saying positive. Kevin, check your answer. Julie is saying positive is more reliable. Rihanna is saying positive more reliable. Tanu is saying positive more reliable. And yes, positive is more reliable. Now why? Now, students, tell me, let's say you have sent a negative confirmation request to Z Limited and Z Limited did not receive that confirmation request, right? Let's say the concerned official, though it has been received by Z Limited, but the concerned official, the accounts department head, let's say the concerned official is the accounts department head and he or she has not received the confirmation request. Now, right? Since the confirmation request has not been received, the response will not be sent. But on the other hand, the auditor is going to assume that since it was a negative confirmation request, the reply has not been received, which means that the Z Limited, I think Z Limited was the example. So the Z Limited has agreed to the balance that is mentioned as 50,000 in the confirmation request. So see, now tell me, but with respect to positive confirmation request, whether whether agreement is there with respect to the information or disagreement, or whether the information is to be provided, response is going to come in all cases, right? And if there is non-response, the auditor is going to be alert in such a situation. Why? He'll apply his professional skepticism as to why the response to positive confirmation request has not been received. However, in case of negative confirmation request, auditor may assume that since the third party has agreed to the balance, that is why the response has not been received, though the case was not the same, right? So that is why, since a response to the positive confirmation request ordinarily is expected to provide reliable audit evidence, right? So the positive confirmation request is ordinarily it provides a positive confirmation. Sorry, it provides a reliable audit evidence, right? Now, see, in case of positive confirmation, it is mentioned that you have to reply. Let's say to X Limited, uh, to Y Limited, the confirmation request was sent whether the balance is 4 lakhs or not. Now, it is received by the concerned official of X Limited. And let's say the concerned official of X Limited, without, looking at the system in their own system, he just looks at this and he just send in a reply that, okay, it is 4 lakhs. Chances are there because reply to karna hi hai. Now, let's say X Limited, they have, let's say, a number of confirmation requests from different parties, from the auditors of different parties. So there can be chances that they just, negligently just send in the reply to all these without looking at the information, without verifying as to what is the correct information. So now what is the solution to this problem? That do not mention the amount, just send a blank confirmation request. That is, do not mention the amount, just send the confirmation as it's sent to. So here I'll write Y Limited. Just a minute. right? Y Limited. So in our example, to Y Limited, the confirmation request send was whether the balance is 4 lakhs or not. So chances are there that the official of Y Limited may, without verifying the correctness of the balance, just mention that yes, it is 4 lakhs. So what is the solution? I told you that send in a blank confirmation request. Now let's say X Limited को जो हमने confirmation request send किया था, that was a blank confirmation request. Now, when there is some work to be done by the official of X Limited, like he receives a confirmation request and he feels that, okay, I need to reply to this. Okay, I'll not, who will do all such efforts? I'll not reply. So, again, the chances are there that if blank confirmation request is sent, then there is what? Lower response rate. So these are basically the pros and cons, the positive and the negative side with respect to the positive confirmations. So is it clear? So I hope this third point is clear with respect to designing the confirmation request. Now is the fourth point, that is once you have decided the information, then you have decided the confirming party, and then you have designed the confirmation request. Now is determination of the fact whether these are properly addressed or not, right? Because these should be sent to the uh, correct party, and the reply should also come directly to the auditor, right? So auditor will see the requests are properly addressed, and he'll test the validity of some or all of the address before they are sent out. So for example, let's say there is a list of total 5,000 or let's say 500 debtors that has been selected on sample basis, and a list of all the addresses. So auditor can just, search on internet. He can just Google as to, he'll just enter the concerned party and he'll just confirm what is the address. Or he may, if the some numbers are available, or he may just mail. So he'll just test the validity of the invoices of the addresses. He can also do that by checking it with the invoice. On the invoice also some address must have been mentioned, so he may do that, right? Now when the auditor is, sending the confirmation request, he may have to send a follow-up confirmation request. So that is, let's say the auditor sends some positive confirmation request to X Limited, but the reply is not received within the reasonable time. Just so, but the reply is not received within the reasonable time. So he may just re-verify as to whether the address is correct or not. He will just resend the or send up a additional or follow-up request, right? So auditor may send additional confirmation request when reply to previous request is not received within reasonable time. Now you will ask me, ma'am, what is reasonable? It all depends upon auditor's professional judgment and the circumstances of the case, right? So re-verifying accuracy of original address and sending the additional all the follow-up request. Is it clear? So I hope the 4 points are clear to you. That is the deciding the information, then the party, then designing the confirmation request, and then sending up along with the follow-up confirmation request, right? Is it clear? Let me just have a look at the queries that. So if the debtor gives information by discussing with information to debtor, are you sure query is not, clear? Please reframe your query as N. So I hope this topic is clear. Now tell me, what if I ask the management that, management, this is the list of all the 500 debtors which I have selected on sample basis, and to all these I want to send the confirmation request letters. Please give me the address. Now let's say with respect to 2 or 3 debtors, the management refuses to provide me with the address and request me as an request the auditor that please do not send confirmation request to these 2 3 debtors. Tell me, what is the course of action available for an auditor in such a case? because audit evidence is required. If management is refusing, then it does not mean that, okay, I will just accept the management refusal and I'll not do any procedure with respect to that particular debtor. So what can auditor do in such a case? What should be the first thing that the auditor should consider in such a case? Quickly send in a reply. So Gunashri, you can send in your queries on the BOS portal as you are doing. If the Zoom chat is disabled, you can send in your queries here on the BOS portal. So yes, you all are saying inquiry. Kevin is saying inquiry. Rihanna is saying inquiry or any alternate procedure. Tanu is saying inquire the management. Aish is saying ask the reasons. Priyanka saying reasons. Priyanka is saying reason behind refusal, which is absolutely correct. See, if management is saying please do not send, it can be a genuine reason, it can be a valid reason, or it can be unreasonable, invalid reason, right? So management refusal to allow the auditor to send confirmation steps. So what are the sorry, to send a confirmation request. So what are the steps? And again, you can always get a 3 or more 4 marks based practical based situation question here, that you have decided to send confirmation request to so and so debtors, but the management refuses to or requests you not to send the confirmation request. So what are the steps that you should take as an auditor? So first of all, you are going to inquire the reasons. You will obtain the audit evidence about the validity and the reasonableness of the reasons. So let's say the management says that, see, some legal dispute is going between our company and this debtor, and it is at the verge of finalization. So at this moment, please do not send any confirmation request letter, because this is going to have an impact on the proceedings that are going on. So if the reason that has been quoted by the management appears to be valid and reasonable. Now you will say, ma'am, what is valid and reasonable? So again, it depends upon the auditor's professional judgment and the circumstances of the case. So auditor is going to determine that. So he'll inquire the reasons. He'll obtain audit evidence with respect to the validity and the reasonableness. And then he is going to evaluate the implications on the auditor's assessment of risk of material misstatement. Is there a risk of fraud, and what is the impact on the nature, timing, extent of other audit procedure? So let's say auditor is not finding such reasons to be reasonable, right? So he will evaluate the implications. He'll apply his professional skepticism. Why management is refusing to give, the address, or to is refusing me, or is not allowing me to send a confirmation request to these two debtors? Is there a risk of material misstatement associated with these two debtors? Is there a risk of fraud? Should I change the nature, timing, extent of my audit procedures? So he's going to evaluate all such implications, right? And as many of you have also replied, he'll perform alternative audit procedures, right? Okay. Now, what if auditor is, concludes that the refusal by management is all unreasonable? Or when we say that he'll perform alternative procedure, let's say after performing the alternative procedures also, auditor is unable to obtain audit evidence by performing the alternative procedure. So what is the course of action? So see, abhi tak to we were communicating with the management. Management has refused, to provide us with the address, or has asked us not to, send the confirmation request. And we found such reasons to be very unreasonable. So let's say management says we are not providing you the address of these debtors, because these two debtors have really not abided by their contract with us, right? Or let's say they have with respect to the sales, they have not made the payment. So this is what the auditor may not find it reasonable. But yes, if the management says that the matter is into litigation, right, and it is on the verge of being finalized, and you're sending confirmation request, may have an impact on the proceedings. So please do not send. So it all depends upon the auditor's professional judgment and the circumstances of the case. So now what to do? So auditor cannot just, accept that, okay, the reason is the refusals are, by the management is unreasonable or I'm unable to obtain, so I'll ignore it. No. What are the next option? What is the next action the auditor should do? He should communicate to those charged with governance, and communication with those charged with governance is contained in SA 260, which is not covered in this chapter, but you will be studying about this in the later chapters. So there you can just we will have a detailed discussion with respect to SA 260. But basically just try to understand that with respect to communication with those charged with governance, SA 260 is there, right? So if the auditor concludes that the refusal is unreasonable or the auditor is unable to obtain sufficient appropriate audit evidence by performing alternative audit procedure, he'll communicate with those charged with governance and he'll determine the implications on the auditor's report in terms of SA 705. So whether what is the impact of such refusal, whether that balance or the assertion that he wanted to, confirm from the third party, whether it is material and pervasive. So depending upon these factors, he is going to, determine the implications for the audit opinion as per SA 705. Is it clear? And when will be, what are the examples when can the management refusal be reasonable? So if there is an existence of legal dispute or ongoing negotiation with the intended confirming party, the resolution of which may be affected by an untimely confirmation request. So the way I gave you example that the management says that it is on the verge of, finalization, and if you send a confirmation request at this moment, this is going to have an impact on the proceedings, right? So untimely confirmation request. So in this case, auditor will seek audit evidence with respect to validity and reasonableness of reasons. And again, he is going to consider the implications with respect to assessment of risk of material misstatement. So if there is a need to revise the assessment of risk of material misstatement at assertion level, he'll do that. If there is a need to revise, to modify the planned audit procedures, he'll do that. And he'll consider the fraud risk factors as per SA 240. So though the management reason is, if auditor find that the refusal is, refusal by the management, it is reasonable. So in that case, what auditor is going to do after he'll obtain audit evidence with respect to validity and reasonableness of the reasons. And yes, he'll try to perform alternative procedures, right? Now, what are the implications of the assessments that auditor makes with respect to management refusals on the risk of material misstatement? So there may be a need to revise the assessment of the risk of material misstatement at the assertion level, which means that earlier auditor decided that with respect to, sale to, let's say, XYZ, or let's say with respect to debtors, this was my risk of material misstatement was assessment of risk of material misstatement was low. Now it is coming that it can be high also. Accordingly, auditor will determine as to what will be the modification to the nature, timing, extent of his planned audit procedure. And he'll also see the factors, that is the fraud risk factors, with which is governed by SA 240. Is it clear? Is it clear? Right? And when we say auditor can perform alternative audit procedures, so when management refuses, so let's say with respect to any of the accounts receivable balances, that is the debtors, so he can always examine the subsequent cash receipts, shipping documentation, or sales near the period end. Same way with respect to accounts payable, auditor may examine what subsequent cash disbursements. So he is not getting a reply from, let's say, the debtors. But if any debtor is there as on 31st March 2025, let's say in the month of April, the payment is been received. So a debtor of 5 lakhs was there and a payment of 5 lakhs was received in April 25. So this way he can obtain audit evidence from an alternate procedures, right? And if auditor concludes that management refusal was unreasonable, we have seen that SA 260 may he is going to communicate to the those charged with governance, and SA 705 may he is going to consider the impact implications on his audit report. Is it clear? Is it clear, students? This essay is really very, very practical. and also interesting, so you are going to find it easy to understand as well as learn. Just try to learn the concept by forming stories in your mind that okay, I'm in such a situation, I'll do this, I'm in such a situation, I'll do this. But yes, then picking up the keywords, writing the correct language is always required. So Priyanka is saying clear. Others also please reply. Send in your replies. So now the next point, which many of you were already, sending me queries with respect to this point. So the next topic is with respect to negative confirmations. Now we have seen that negative confirmation is a request whereby the third party has been asked that you send in your response only if you disagree, right? So chances are there that the third party, let's say, may not have received the confirmation request, and accordingly the response is not sent. However, our auditor, he assumes that the third party agrees, that is why the response has not been received. Chances are there. So negative confirmation provide less persuasive audit evidence. Now, what is meant by persuasive? I have told you a number of times, and this is not pervasive. So don't get confused between pervasive and persuasive. Student, when we say pervasive, pervasive is having an impact on many assertions. Omnipresent is the dictionary meaning when I have told you in the earlier session. Now, persuasive means convincing. So, negative confirmation provides less convincing audit evidence than the positive confirmation. So, let's say if I have sent a confirmation request to Y and Z, and to Y I have sent the confirmation, a positive confirmation request, and I've received a reply whereby it is mentioned that he agrees with the balance. And a second situation whereby I have sent a negative confirmation request to Z, right? And the reply, let's say, is not received. So is my comfort more? Will it be on Y or Z? It will be more with respect to Y, because there too I have received a reply, whether it is an agreement or disagreement or whether the information is provided. But negative confirmation means, since chances are there that I as auditor, I may assume that the third party has said that they agree, but actually the situation is that the third party has not received, or let's say they are not willing to reply. There is a disagreement and they are not willing to reply, right? So this can also be a situation, right? So that is why there is a next point, which is again a very, very important question. You can always get a 3 or 4 marks straightforward question here, that what are the situations where the negative confirmation can be used, right? So the auditor shall not use negative confirmation unless, or just the opposite of this language, that is, auditor shall use the negative confirmation request only when all the following are present, right? Auditor, so in your module, the language that has been given is what? Let me just take you through your module also. So this is on page number 4.85 of your module. So see, negative confirmation request, we are doing this topic. So it says that auditor shall not use negative confirmation request as the sole substantive procedure to address the assessed risk of material misstatement at assertion level unless all the following are present. Or in order to understand just the opposite, that auditor may send the negative confirmation when all the following are present, right? Okay. So what are these conditions that should be present if the auditor wants to use the negative confirmation request as the sole substantive procedure? Sole is what? Only substantive procedure. So let's say if, so what are those conditions? The risk of material misstatement as assessed by the auditor is low, and the internal control is effective. If these things are there, so you just try to put yourself in a situation, and whereby you, based on your assessment, you have considered that the risk of material misstatement is high. Tell me, will you send negative confirmation? No. right? So where the auditor has assessed the risk of material misstatement to be low and the IC are effective, auditor may send negative confirmation. But all these conditions should be present. So what are the rest three conditions? So where the population is large, it is large in numbers. So this is talking about numbers with and consisting of small and homogeneous balances. So large is with respect to the quantity, the numbers, and the population means the, let's say, the debtors or the creditors to whom you want to send confirmation request, the population, the items that you want to check, a whole list of all those items is what the population. So that should be large in number, and the amount should be small and homogeneous. Small is what, like, let's say it is below, let's say, the materiality level, and it should be homogeneous, that is what, similar. Remember, we have done homogeneous and heterogeneous. So homogeneous is what, similar, right? So if this is also present, the auditor may consider sending the negative confirmation request at the sole substantive procedure. Then very low exception rate is expected. So what is an exception rate? When there is a difference. So if the expectation by the auditor is that the exception rate is very low, he may send the negative confirmation request. Now you will say, ma'am, how to determine a low exception rate? It all depends upon auditor's professional judgment, right? And if the auditor is not aware of any circumstance that would cause recipient of negative confirmation request to disregard such request. So if you remember, when we were designing the confirmation request, one of the point was this prior experience of the auditor. Okay, so now just keep in mind that prior experience wala point, and now try to understand the last point. It says that auditor is not aware about any circumstances that would cause the recipient of negative confirmation request to disregard such request. So let's say auditor is not having any past experience whereby he has not received, or whereby the party to whom negative confirmation requests were sent, they did not reply, though they disagreed, right? So if all these things are present, then only auditor may decide to send the negative confirmation request as the sole substantive procedure. That is what the risk of material misstatement, assessed risk of material misstatement is low, and the IT, the internal control with respect to that particular um, assertion is good. The population is large, consisting of small homogeneous account balances or transactions. See, large in number. So let's say if the population that is to be tested, the trade receivable, it consists of only 10 debtors. So will you send negative confirmation? Going through the reply, sending the confirmation request to 10 debtors, then, reviewing all those responses is not a cumbersome process. Vis-a-vis, or compared to another situation whereby the population consists of, let's say, 10,000 or 1 lakh debtors. So, and all the amount are very small. So in that case, negative confirmation request can be sent. Very low exception rate is expected, and auditor is not aware of circumstances that would cause the recipient of the negative confirmation to disregard such request. Students, with respect to this particular topic, I really want you to go through the module, because I want you to be aware as to what language is expected, or what language you are going to use when you're going to write the answer with respect to this question, right? So the auditor, just a minute. The auditor has assessed the risk of material misstatement as low. So see now how to, make notes. You always ask me that, ma'am, how to make our own notes. So here I'll just tell you. So you can always write here when the risk of material misstatement is low, right? And has obtained sufficient appropriate audit evidence regarding operating effectiveness of controls relevant to the assertion. So see how to learn. So I've written ICR good, right, in my notes, but the language that is expected will be this. So either you may write in short for your reference that ICR good, or if you want to make notes for this only, so you may write that he has obtained sufficient appropriate audit evidence with respect to operating effectiveness of the internal control. Right? Is it clear? Then if the population, so now I'll highlight the keywords. Okay, so if for all those who want to highlight, so you can say the item of the population subject to negative confirmation procedures are large number of small homogeneous account balances, transaction or conditions. So number is large. So we are not saying large amount, large number, and the amount is small. Then very low exception rate expected, and auditor is not aware of the circumstance or condition that would cause the recipient of negative confirmation to disregard such request. Right? Is it clear? So it is the point that we were discussing, that with respect to negative confirmation, there may be a failure of the third party to respond, but the auditor may assume that the third party has agreed. So this is given here, right? So is it clear? Sejal, it is not, this topic is really very, very important, and you can always, you can understand this topic. So I told you the language that is used here is that the auditor shall not use the negative confirmation unless all of the following are present. So in order to understand, you can always consider that the auditor will use if all the conditions are present. Is it clear? So Kevin has asked me to repeat the D point. The auditor is not aware of the circumstances or conditions that will cause recipient of negative confirmation request to disregard such request. Now just consider an example, students, that let's say I have an experience that I was the auditor of this company last year also. And last year I have forwarded certain negative confirmation requests to let's say 100 debtors, right? Now I have an experience that when I send a negative confirmation request, the most that list of 100 debtors, out of that, let's say 40-50% of the debtors, they disregarded, they did not care about, sending the replies even if they disagreed, right? My past experience was such that they are not going to reply, right? And in fact, let's say last year I have sent positive confirmation requests to those debtor and I did not receive the reply. So will I decide to send a negative confirmation request this time? So that is why the auditor is not aware of circumstances or condition that would cause recipient of negative confirmation request to disregard such request. Or let's say after having a look at the entire balance or the all the transactions of X Limited for the last 4 years for which I have been debtor, I am sure that I am going to get a reply if there is any disagreement. So based on my past experience. So Kevin, is it clear? So, Sejal, is your doubt clear? I think you were also talking about the D point. Is that clear? Okay. Now, when the auditor, receives any of the responses with respect to positive confirmation, whether it is an agreement, disagreement, or let's say he did not receive any response to the positive confirmation, or let's say any of the letter is returned back undelivered. Now, what the auditor is going to do in that case? So, the last topic of this essay is your evaluating the evidence obtained. So see, when auditor, you have seen that non-response also includes, just a minute. Non-response also includes confirmation request returned undelivered, right? So here auditor may, decide to resend it, to re-verify the, to verify the address, to send it again, right? Or if after sending that also it is not possible, then auditor may, ask the management to give the auditor in writing that what is the reason why the replies are not received, or any of the audit procedure that the auditor will decide, right? So the last topic that we are going to do is what you're evaluating the audit evidence. We are on page number 4.86 of your module, students. Okay. So the auditor shall evaluate whether the results of external confirmation procedures provide relevant, reliable audit evidence, or whether performing further audit procedure is necessary. Simple. Okay. So what is the category of the results that he may divide? So first is what? A response by the appropriate party indicating agreement with the information provided or providing the requested information without exception. So that means everything is good. So X, say auditor has asked. So I'm continuing with the same example. So with respect to X, we have received a reply that the balance is 3 lakhs, and this is what is there in the books of ABC Limited also, right? So there is no exception. And with respect to Y, we have mentioned either whether it is 4 or 5, right? So whether it is 4 and we have received from Y, it is 4 lakhs only. So it is reply is received and there is no response, there is no exception. With respect to Z, we have sent that 50,000 ka balance is there. So negative confirmation request we have sent and we have not received any of the reply from Z. So everything is good in a very, simple language, I can say. So a response by the appropriate party indicating agreement with the information provided in confirmation request or requested information provided without exception. Okay. Then a response deemed unreliable. So let's say I have asked the third party to send me a reply invoice wise, that what is the invoice amount with respect to these 5 invoices, right? But and why I have asked for such 5 invoices ka amount? Because let's say I have certain doubt over the amount of these invoices. Now I received a reply from the third party whereby he has sent me a balance as on 31st March. So I may consider it as unreliable. Or let's say I have sent it to the accounts head of XYZ Limited or any of the debtors or creditors. Though the reply has come from, let's say, any of the HR department, and there is a difference between the amount that has been mentioned. So again, I may find it unreliable. Okay. A non-response. Now, do you all know what is a non-response? That is the full response or part response with respect to the positive confirmation request is not received or any of the confirmation request is returned undelivered. Response indicating an exception. So let's say I have sent a confirmation request to X whereby I ask that what is the balance. So now I have received that the balance is 3 lakhs, but in the books it is 2 lakhs. Or let's say to Y I have sent a reply that whether the balance is 4 lakh and he has said no, it is 5 lakh. Or let's say with respect to Z. So these can be or and uh, these can be connected by or and, right? And in case of Z, let's say I've sent that whether the balance is 50,000, reply only if you disagree, and he has sent a reply, no, the balance is 40,000, right? So the auditor evaluation, when taken into account with other audit procedure that may have been performed, may assist the auditor in concluding whether sufficient appropriate audit evidence has been obtained or whether there is a requirement to perform or further audit procedure as per SA 330. Is it clear? Is it clear? So I'll just take you through the entire essay once and then we'll just have a look at test your understanding question and then we'll start with the next essay scheduled for today. So essay 505 is with respect to external confirmation, whereby we have seen that it is the audit evidence obtained as a direct written response to the auditor from the third party in paper form, electronic or other medium. And we have seen because of the 3 things, it is a reliable audit evidence. What are those 3 things? That it is in documentary form, received directly, and external part and independent source, right? Then the various confirmation requests, positive confirmation request, negative confirmation request, non-response and exception we have seen. Then the procedure is determining the information to be confirmed or requested. And see here, you will see that absence of conditions such as side agreement. So I hope the side agreement wala point is clear. Then selecting the appropriate confirming party, designing the confirmation request. There are 3 points. That is, first of all, the design, because this is going to have an impact on response rate, reliability, and nature of audit evidence. Factors to be considered. We have seen all these factors, and then the positive confirmation request. So basically, it means that the reply is to be received in all the cases. Then is fourth is determination of property addressed, and in the fourth point we have 2 points. That is one relating to your, just a minute. So sending the determination of properly addressed request and follow up with the confirmation request. Okay. So basically, students, this is your, just a minute. So this third point is this point is covered in your third C point only, determination of properly addressed request, right? And then sending and then asking for the follow-up request also. Is it clear? Dhanush, yes, I'll repeat. So Dhanush has asked me to repeat the side agreement wala point. So student, it basically says that not only the account balances and their elements, auditor may also confirm the terms of agreement, the contracts, or any transaction, or absence of certain conditions such as side agreement. So students, what is side agreement? So let's say the company has entered into a contract with X Limited. X is a debtor, and that main contract has been made available to the auditor also for verification. However, there is a side agreement, right? Side agreement means any agreement other than the main agreement, which is, with the intention to manipulate, with the intention to give additional discount, let's say, or some additional terms or condition with respect to transaction with X Limited. Let's say X is a related party, right? So, but those agreement are not shown to the auditor. So auditor can always, ask absence of certain condition, that is whether side agreement is there or not. Is it clear? Dhanush, is it clear? Okay. Then if management refuses, then auditor will he'll inquire the management with respect to the reason in order to see the validity and reasonableness, impact on the assessment of risk of material misstatement, the risk of fraud, or the nature, timing, extent of audit procedure, perform alternative procedure. If he concludes that the reasons are unreasonable, communicate to those charged with governance as per 260 and your implications on audit report as per SA 2705. If refusal is, reasonable, it can be legal dispute or ongoing negotiation. Auditor is going to consider the audit evidence with respect to validity and reasonableness, right? And the implications, what are the implications? It says that auditor will see whether there is a need to revise the assessment of risk of material misstatement or modify the planned nature, timing, extent of audit procedure, or is it the indication to fraud risk factors, which is governed by SA 240, right? Alternative procedures, we have seen what can be performed. Negative confirmation, a very, very important topic. If all these conditions are there, or the language that is used is what? Since negative confirmation provide less persuasive. I hope this term persuasive is clear to all of you. Okay. So auditor shall not use negative confirmation request unless all the following are present, right? And then evaluating the audit evidence. Is it clear? Dhanush, is your doubt clear? So Sejal is saying, ma'am, can you explain side agreement with the help of an example? So let's say there is an agreement with all the debtors whereby, let's say, any of the sales have been made or at, let's say, rupees 10, right? And to X Limited also, the main agreement says the sales is been made at rupees 10 only, right? However, with respect to X Limited, there are any side agreement whereby it is specifically mentioned that with respect to like the sales that will be made to X Limited, a further discount of 5% will be given or 10% will be given. This feature is not there in any of the contracts with other debtors, right? Now, Sejal, is your clear? So some additional benefit has been given, right? So why such benefit is there? Or let's say the terms and conditions at which the contract has been entered is different with respect to X, but that is not mentioned in the main agreement. Certain side agreement has been entered into with respect to that. So Sejal, is it clear now? Students, quickly go through test your understanding 8, which is given on page number, just a minute, 4.86. CA Jignesh Desai is in the midst of audit of a company. The company is fairly large one and has a well-functioning internal audit department. While considering sending out external confirmation request to trade receivable outstanding as on the date of financial statement, he has delegated the process of choosing trade receivable request and receiving responses from customer to internal audit department. The responses are also received on the email ID of internal audit department. Is the approach of CA Jignesh correct? Tell me. So the answer is no. Why? Because the definition of external confirmation as per SA 505 is what? It is a direct written response, right? Direct written response to the auditor, and the very basic of external confirmation will not be met if the same is, sent by the external audit department, and the replies are also received by the external audit, sorry, the internal audit department, right? And see, it says he has delegated the process of choosing the trade receivable, designing the request, and receiving responses. So if you remember, when we were doing SS 610, we saw that the areas which require auditor's judgment. So when you are, choosing the trade receivable, it requires making judgments, designing the request. So it requires judgment. So that thing should not be delegated to the internal audit department. Is it clear? Now read this test your understanding 9. So, on reviewing the schedule of trade receivables of a company, CA Mary finds that in respect of one outstanding balance, the CFO of the company is not willing to allow her to send external confirmation request due to the reason that sending out such request could spoil precariously placed business relations with the customer. On further inquiry, she finds out that there is a dispute going on with the company relating to some quality issues of goods sent to the customer, and the matter is sub judice. Efforts are also being made by the company for out of court settlement. Reviewing correspondence with customer, she found that the issue is near resolution and no fraud risk factors exist. Is willingness of CFO justifiable? Yes or no? So tell me the answer. This is test your understanding 9. Let me just take you through the answer that is given. So, see, this is appearing to be a reasonable reason or refusal. So, let us just have a look at the answer given at the end of your chapter. So, ninth question, right? In terms of requirement of SA 505, if management refuses to allow the auditor to send confirmation request, the auditor shall inquire as to the reasons for refusal and seek audit evidence for the validity and reasonableness. A common reason advanced is the existence of legal dispute, ongoing negotiation with the intended party, the resolution of which may be affected by untimely confirmation request. Further, fraud rate factor do not exist. See, this fact is also mentioned in the question. Keeping in view unwillingness of CFO is justifiable. Okay, is it clear? So see these, so a simple answer that yes, he is justifiable will not be sufficient. You will have to, give proper explanations. And see, if you just took management reasons for refusal, seek audit evidence for validity, for reasonableness, right? And then these are the facts that are being picked from the question itself, right? So not difficult as such. Are you all with me? Are you finding it easy to understand and to, see as to how to write the answers? So Priyanka said CFO request is justifiable because of genuine reason. Kevin said yes. Julie said yes. Ayush said yes. Sejal said yes. So chalo, that's good that you are able to understand the reasoning and everything. You are able to, send in the correct answers. So the next essay that we are going to cover up is essay 510. Quickly send in your reply till essay 505. Is it clear? So we have done essay 500, essay 501, essay 505. So the next topic is essay 510. And students, really, like, I would like to tell you here, many of the times students get confused between essay 510 and 501. So 501 is the one which we have done in the earlier session relating to audit evidence. If you remember, specific consideration for selected items, right? And this is 510. So don't get confused, right? So don't get confused. So now we'll be starting with, so Priyanka is saying crystal clear. So what is the doubt in ninth? I'll repeat it. There is a query with respect to test your understanding 9. See, the reason that, so the case says that CA Mary wants to send confirmation request with respect to trade receivables, and CFO is not willing to allow her to send confirmation request due to the reason that, first of all, it says that it can spoil the business relationship with the customers. And also when she further inquired, it says inquired. So when she further inquired, she found that there is some dispute that has been going on, and the matter is sub judice, it is still under litigation, and efforts are also being made by the company for court settlement, right? And reviewing correspondence, she found that it is near resolution. And so this is one fact, right? This is the reason that has been quoted by the management. Further, she also found that there are no risk factors, no fraud risk factors, right? So is the willingness of CFO justifiable? So see, since the reasons are genuine, and also, what can be a possibility when the management is saying that you cannot sit? There can be a possibility of fraud, which is also nullified because it is mentioned here that no fraud risk factor exists. So, is the willingness of CFO justifiable? That is, whether the reason that has been given by CFO, is it reasonable? Is the refusal reasonable? So, the answer is yes. Tanu, is it clear? Send in your replies, reply, Tanu. So, I'll do one thing since it's 3:50. We'll take a quick break of 10 minutes here. So today we'll take a break of 10 minutes only because I really want to finish up with essay 510 and then want to start with essay 550. And in the break, you can always send in your queries on the BOS portal. And after the break, I'll be starting with essay 510, initial audit engagement opening balances. So a quick So students, I hope you all are back after the break. So I can see that you all have sent me a reply that you have understood, clearly understood SA 505. So that's good. Now let us start with SA 510. And the name is Initial Audit Engagements, Opening Balances. So basically, just try to understand a situation whereby you are conducting the audit of ABC Limited for the first time. Okay. Now, when you are conducting the audit of the financial statements of ABC Limited for the year ended, let's say 31st March 2025, and that too for the first time, let's say that the financial statement that you are going to verify is the closing balances or the transaction during the year 24-25 that have happened during the year, right? But when you just look at the balances as on 31st March 25, these are what? These are derived from the opening balances plus minus the transactions that have taken place during the year and then the balances as on 31st March 25. So here too you are going to perform your audit procedures. Here also you are going to perform your audit procedure. But are you going to perform your audit procedures here also? So this is the topic that we are going to discuss in essay 510. Or let's say now I am not saying whether the last year financial statements were audited by any other audit firm or not. So basically the main thing is you are conducting the audit for the first time. The company was there in existence. It was incorporated in earlier years also. So it is not that it is a new company. Opening balances are there, right? So what is the various provisions with respect to conducting the audit in such a case? So what is the name of the essay? So the name is Initial Audit Engagements, Opening Balances, and the number is SA 510. So it deals with the auditor's responsibility relating to opening balances when conducting an initial audit engagement. So now the first question is, what is an initial audit engagement? So basically an engagement where either the financial statement of the prior period were not audited. For the first time audit has been conducted. So we are not saying that opening balances hai nahi, last year there was not the company was not incorporated. We are not saying this. We are saying that the financial statements of prior period were not audited, right? Or the company for the prior period were audited by a predecessor auditor. So in a nutshell, the auditor who is the auditor for the current year, so the current peer auditor, he did not audit the financial statements of the earlier year. Either they were not audited or they were audited by a predecessor auditor. So what is meant by predecessor auditor? So basically any of the auditor whose position has been replaced by the current auditor, right? So who was the auditor in the previous year? So the auditor from a different audit firm. So not the same audit firm as the current year audit firm, who audited the financial statements of an entity in the prior period and who has been replaced by the current auditor. Right? Is it clear? Okay, is it clear? So, Priyanka, your doubt will be clear. First, let us just have a look at least half of this essay. So, initial audit engagement opening balances, whereby we have seen as to why we are studying this essay. Right. So basically, the responsibilities of the auditor relating to the opening balances when conducting an initial audit engagement. So two things should be there. Opening balances should be there, and it should be an initial audit engagement. So initial audit engagement means what? That either the financial statements of the prior period were not audited or they were audited by some predecessor auditor, right? And opening balances means that last year the financial statements were prepared, right? So it is not the first year of incorporation as such, right? Now, what is meant by opening balances? So basically the closing balance of the last year is going to become the opening of this year. So those account balances that exist at the beginning of the period, and opening balances are based upon closing balances of prior period and reflect the effects of transaction events of prior period and accounting policies applied in the prior period, because the closing becomes the opening. Also, opening balances include matters requiring disclosure that existed at the beginning of the period, such as contingencies and commitments. So, if any disclosure requirement is there with respect to the opening contingencies and commitments, that will also be included in the opening balances. So, I hope this brief idea about SA 510, what all is included in opening balances, what is initial audit engagement, and what is predecessor auditor. I hope this is clear to all of you. Okay. Now, what is the objective? So, in this entire essay, students, you will see that we are talking about opening balances and we are talking about accounting policies. And when we talk about opening balances, just try to understand that. Let's say you are checking the debtor, or let's say the inventory. Okay. You are checking the inventory as on 31st March 2025. Okay. Now, there was some opening inventory. Then certain plus minus happened during the year, certain purchases or sales or usage of inventory. And then there was certain closing balance, closing inventory as on 31st March. Now you have to give your opinion with respect to, the assertions relating to this and this, right? Now tell me, what if the inventory here itself is understated, or if it is overstated? Overstated, right? So what is the requirement? So I can see Priyanka said that, ma'am, if we check the opening balances, then it is a time consuming process. Yes. And also just see that those opening were the closing of last year, and that closing was the, that had an impact of opening of that year also. So sorry. So that is why we are studying this concept as to what is the responsibility of the auditor with respect to opening balances in case of initial audit engagement. See, for auditor, if let's say XYZ and Associates are the auditor, and the client is ABC Limited. Now, let's say if XYZ and Associates were the auditor of ABC Limited last year also, then too there would have not been an issue, na? Because they would have checked the closing. That closing has become opening of this year, and they can very well rely on their own work, right? But this is an initial audit engagement. That is, they did not audit the financial statements of the earlier year, prior period, or the financial statements were not audited. Clear? Is it clear, Priyanka? Okay. So two things. So this essay is divided basically into two things that the auditor has to do. First is relating to the opening balance, and then the appropriateness of the accounting policies. So basically, auditor will see whether the opening balance contain any misstatement that materially affect the current period's financial statement. So now let us just come back to the example of inventory. So whether the opening inventory contain any misstatement that could have an impact on the current period financial statement. Just keep this example in mind. Let me just repeat the first objective. So it says that the auditor has to obtain sufficient appropriate audit evidence about whether opening opening balance contain any misstatement that materially affect the current period's financial statement. Is it clear? And the second, you all are now aware that accounting policies may, we as auditors, we always see that whether the accounting policies that are reflected in the opening balances, whether these are consistently applied, and if they in the current period, and if any changes are there, whether they are properly accounted for, presented and disclosed as per the applicable financial reporting framework. Is it clear? So this is the purpose why we are studying this essay. So whether the opening balances contain any misstatement that materially affect the current period financial statement, and whether appropriate accounting policies that are reflected in the opening balances, whether they are consistently applied in current period, and if not, if changes are there, the same should be accounted for properly accounted for and adequately presented and disclosed as per the applicable financial reporting framework. So students, I'm repeating it again and again. You are not supposed to write this in your exam AFRF. You are supposed to write applicable financial reporting framework. You are not supposed to write sufficient appropriate audit evidence like this. These are the short forms that I use for your better understanding only, right? Or you can say certain learning techniques. So this is what sufficient appropriate audit evidence. Writing of these short forms is not, is not something that is expected in your examination, right? So now the next topic is how will you, obtain sufficient appropriate audit evidence with respect to opening balances. Now tell me, what is the first thing that you are going to consider when you see you are giving an expert opinion? You are giving your balance, your opinion on the balance as on 31st March. Let's say with respect to inventory, we are saying, right? One of the assertion we are talking about. So I'm not saying inventory पे opinion देना है, but financial statements as on 31st March or P&L for the year ended 31st March, right? Now, all the your P&L, your balance sheet, they are the outcome of certain transactions that have occurred during the year plus the opening balances. So there is some responsibility of the auditor with respect to opening balances also, and he will have to obtain sufficient appropriate audit evidence whether such opening balance contain any misstatement that materially affect the current period financial statement. Now tell me, what is the first thing that you are going to check if you have to check whether opening balances are properly shown or not? The first thing. Okay, Kevin is saying you will inspect. Inspection of what? What particularly you are going to see? Send in your replies, students. Very easy, very interesting, very practical. I'm waiting for your replies. Send in your replies on the BOS portal. So see, the first thing that I can see is whether that opening balance is the result of what? It is basically the copy paste of what? The closing balance. So can I see whether the closing balance has been appropriately carried forward this year or not? The basic thing that I can just, consider while obtaining sufficient appropriate audit evidence with respect to opening balances. So first of all, the auditor is going to consider as to whether the prior period closing balance is correctly brought forward and if any adjustment is there. So let's say any inventory was understated, right? So whether the adjustment has been disclosed as the prior period item in the current, as a prior period item PPI in the current year statement of P&L. So auditor will just consider that, right? Simple. So Dhanush is saying, ma'am, when we have the previous year closing balances, why we have to study this essay? See, students, what I have said that consider a situation whereby you were the auditor last year also. Those closing became opening this year and opening plus minus the transaction became the closing and you are giving your opinion on the closing balances. Now, and the transaction during the year also. Now, since you were the auditor last year, you are aware as to the fact that you have conducted the audit in an appropriate manner and the opinion that has been given, you are all aware about, as in you are aware about all the facts and circumstances with respect to the last year also because you were the auditor and you can rely on your work, right? This is simple. Now, the second thing is, let's say the this I think this is clear to all of you that opening is going to have an impact on the closing. Dhanush, are you clear with this point that opening is going to have an impact on the closing balances or the financial statement on which I am going to give my opinion? Send in your replies. So now tell me, if opening balances, that means closing of last year, were not audited by you, or consider a situation that closing balance of the last year, that is last year you audited the financial statements and those closing balances have become opening. This is first situation. As compared to the second situation, that is they were not audited or they were audited by some other auditor. Tell me in which case you are going to rely more on the opening balances validity. Tell me. First situation mein you audited the audit of the you conducted the audit of the financial statements of the last year, and second situation mein it was either not conducted or conducted by someone else. Yes, so you all are saying that when I have conducted the audit of the last year, in that situation, I would be more, I would have more reliance, or I'll be able to rely more with respect to those balances. So, but this is not the situation. Now, either they were not audited or they were audited by predecessor auditor. So, in this essay, you will see that predecessor auditor ka bhi alag se paragraph is coming, that what if the financial statements were audited by predecessor auditor. That we are going to consider. But abhi ke liye, I hope it is fine. Dhanush, is your doubt clear as to why we are studying this essay? ठीक है. Now, with respect to opening balances, first and foremost, we will see a very logical thing, that whether these are correctly brought forward this year or not, and if any adjustment is there, whether the same has been shown as prior period item in the current year statement of P&L. Clear, right? Now, determining whether opening balances reflect application of appropriate accounting policies. So whether appropriate accounting policies have been, opening balances show the accounting policies that has been shown last year, and performing one or more of the following. So one or more. So any of these or all of these, it all depends upon auditor's professional judgment. So see, if the prior period financial statements were audited, then perusing, what is meant by perusing? Reading the copies of audited financial statement, including other relevant documents relating to prior period financial statement. See, let's say if the last year financial statement, you found that the audit report says that it is there is a modification in the auditor's report. You are going to consider now as to what was the modification, whether the same has been, corrected or not, whether the same has been adjusted as a prior period item in the statement of P&L. So you are going to consider that, right? Then, so first is what, the if the financial statements are audited, so all the copy of the audited financial statement, the report, the relevant documents. Then evaluate whether audit procedure performed in current period provide evidence relevant to the opening balances. What is that? I'll just discuss. And performing specific procedure to obtain evidence regarding the opening balances. Now, in order to understand this, just consider an example of debtors. So let's say with respect to X Limited, so there is only, let's say, one debtor for the purpose of simplicity, X Limited, and the closing balance is, let's say, 10 lakhs. This is the closing balance, right? Now the opening bill becomes 10 lakhs. Now you have to perform certain audit procedure in order to obtain sufficient appropriate audit evidence with respect to this opening balances. So let's say during the year when you were performing the procedure for the current year, you saw that 10 lakh payment has been received. So though you did not perform any audit procedure, any separate audit procedure in order with respect to the opening balance, but while you were verifying the transactions of the current year, you find that a payment of 10 lakhs has been received. So this indirectly gives you audit evidence with respect to that opening balance. Now read this point, evaluating whether audit procedure performed in the current period. So you were just verifying the transactions that have happened during the current period, and you saw that 10 lakh payment has been. So this, give the auditor a sufficient appropriate audit evidence that, okay, that balance was correct. That was shown as an opening balance because 10 lakh payment has been received. Is it clear? Are you clear with this point? Evaluating whether audit procedure performed in the current period provide relevant evidence relevant to the opening balances. Is it clear? Then only I'll proceed with this third point. Students, send in your replies on the BOS portal. So Tanu is saying clear, Priyanka is saying clear, Dhanush, please reply. Who all are there? Kevin, please reply. Sejal, reply. Ayush, Julie, So students are saying yes, ma'am, clear. Okay. So as such, you did not perform specific audit procedure with respect to opening balance, but when you were performing the audit procedure for the current period, you were able to obtain audit evidence that were relevant to the opening balance also, right? Now, tell me, if let's say opening inventory was, let's say 1 CR. During the year, there has been addition and you can say usage, and the net effect is that 0.5 CR, that is 50 lakhs ka addition has been there, and now 1.5 CR is your closing inventory. Now tell me, will this open, is this closing inventory giving you any audit evidence with respect to the opening? So the answer is no. Here you will have to perform specific audit procedures. So performing the specific audit procedure to obtain evidence regarding the opening balances. Or you can take another example. Let's say there is an opening balance of building of 1 CR. Okay? Building of 1 CR is there. And the closing balance of building is also 1 CR. So is there a need to just verify the opening balance? Yes, you will, just have a look at the title deed. You will just have a look at the depreciation that has been calculated. Why? Because when you are performing the procedures, let's say for during the year, you are not able to get any balance with respect to the opening. Or let's say, I'll just modify this for better understanding. The building balance is 1 CR and the closing balance is, let's say, 5 CR. So during the year, you might have obtained audit evidence with respect to the building addition of 4 CR. But in order to, obtain comfort with respect to the building of 1 CR, you will have to perform specific audit procedures. So now read the third point, performing specific audit procedure to obtain evidence regarding the opening balances. So here it may be a requirement for the auditor to, perform the audit procedure with respect to the opening balances. So basically with respect to the, like you cannot as such say with respect to all current assets and liability, but yes, with respect to current assets and liabilities, you may be able to, obtain the audit evidence which are relevant to the opening balances by performing the procedures for the current year. But with respect to, let's say, fixed assets, so I gave you example of building. So 1 CR was the opening, 5 CR is the closing, 4 CR ke liye you are going to perform specific procedures. But for opening balance of 1 CR also, you will have to see whether that is, valid or not, right? Right? So these are the audit procedures that the auditor is going to perform. So I'll just repeat it. So first and foremost, see whether the balances are correctly brought forward, and if any item is to be adjusted, then the same is shown as PPI in the current year PNL, right? Then whether they reflect appropriate accounting policies, and then performing one or more of the following. That is, if the financial statements are audited by using the audited financial statement and the relevant document, evaluating whether audit procedures performed in the current period provide evidence relevant to the opening balances, or performing specific audit procedure to obtain audit evidence regarding the opening balances. Now, let's say after performing all this audit procedure, auditor obtains audit evidence that the opening balances that the opening balance has a misstatement which materially affect the current period financial statement. So let's say inventory is understated and the same has not been adjusted as PPI. Auditor obtains the audit evidence. So what will he do? He will perform additional audit procedure to determine the effect on the current period financial statement. So he has obtained an audit evidence that there is some misstatement and the same is having some material effect. So he is going to perform further audit procedure, additional audit procedure, to determine as to what is the effect on the current period financial statement. Clear? Now, if he concludes that such misstatement exists, the same has not been adjusted, he'll communicate it with the appropriate level of management and those start with governance. Simple? Simple? Is it simple? Right? Now, what are the matters? So when the auditor is deciding as to the nature and timing of the audit procedure that he has to perform with respect to opening balances, what are the matters that he is going to consider? So see what accounting policies have been followed by the entity, what is the nature of accounts, significance of opening balances relevant to current period financial statement, whether prior period financial statement were audited or not, whether the predecessor's auditor report was modified. So let's say the predecessor's auditor's report was modified and it was with respect to debtors balance. So obviously the nature, timing, and the extent of audit procedure that the auditor is going to perform with respect to debtors and sale is going to be more, right? So these are the factors that are going to determine the nature and the timing of audit procedure that the auditor is going to perform to obtain audit evidence with respect to opening balances. So what accounting policies have been followed? The nature of account balances, whether such opening balances are significant for the current period financial statements, or whether prior period financial statement were audited, and if there was any modification in the this predecessor auditor's opinion. Simple, right? Now, if the prior period financial statement were audited by the predecessor auditor, so see, we have seen that auditor is going to peruse the copy of the audited financial statement, relevant document, and the supporting schedules of the audited financial statement. But see, ordinarily, so if you remember, I gave you an example when there was a query of Dhanush. I told that if, let's say, you conducted the audit last year, so in that situation, whether you are going to rely more, or if it was not audited or audited by some other auditor, right? So you told me that if the same has been audited by the like me only, if I am the auditor of the current period, then my reliance will be more, because I know as to what was the report, what are the various assertion, what is the problem, or what is whether the financial statement reflected a true and fair view last year or not, right? Now, if the financial statements of the previous year were prior period were audited by predecessor auditor, that is by someone else, my audit firm was not involved, right? Now, in that situation, ordinarily, generally, the current auditor can place a reliance on the closing balance, because he is also a chartered accountant, he is also an expert, he is also giving an expert opinion, and he is also performing the audit report. He is also, performing the audit procedure, obtaining the audit evidence, and giving his opinion after considering the requirements of these standards on auditing. Clear? So ordinarily, the current auditor can place the reliance contained in the financial statement, except, so see, when you were conducting the audit procedure for the current period, you found that there can be a possibility of misstatement in the opening balances. So will you still, place reliance on the opening balances? Tell me. So I am telling you that ordinarily you can rely on the or you can put reliance on the closing balances contained in the financial statement if the same have been audited by predecessor auditor. But if during the conduct of audit, you found that there can be a possibility of misstatement, so will you put reliance? Answer is no. So that is why, except when during the performance of the audit procedure for the current period, the possibility of misstatement in the opening balances is indicated. So let's say during the year you found that okay, there is some certain debtors balances are there which were not considered as related party last year, and there are certain side agreements. So now there is a doubt that last year also certain side agreement might have been there, which might not have been considered by the then auditor. So auditor is going to, perform more audit procedure with respect to those assertions. Simple. Now, this we have already discussed that with respect to the current assets and liabilities. So it says that for some audit evidence about opening balances, some audit evidence about opening balances with respect to current assets and liability may be obtained as part of current period's audit report. Example, collection of opening accounts receivable or payment of your opening accounts payable. Simple. However, inventories के केस में on closing inventory balance, performance of the current audit procedure may provide little evidence regarding the opening balances. That is, additional audit procedures may be required. So if I'll just explain this again. So here we discussed that, let's say 10 lakh was the balance of X debtor, and during the year 10 lakh payment has been received. So this provides an sufficient appropriate audit evidence with respect to this opening balance. But let's say 1 CR ka inventory was there, and during the year some additional purchases are there, and as at the end of the year, let's say the inventory that is left is 80 lakhs. right? Or if it is, even if it is more, but this is not giving you any audit evidence, or this is not giving you any audit evidence with respect to this 1 CR, so audit procedure will have to be performed. So auditor may, perform all these audit procedure. This is the procedures that we have already discussed when we were discussing about physical inventory count, right? Now, with respect to non-current assets and liabilities, so if you remember, I gave you example of building. Okay, so such as plant and PP investments, long-term debt, evidence may be obtained by examining the accounting records, other information, underlying opening balances. So underlying opening balances is what? That the records which were used to make the opening balances. So which were used as the basis. So for example, if building of 1 CR was there and now it is 5 CR, so 1 CR ke liye to I'll have to check the title deed which was there with respect to the opening balances, or confirmation from third parties can also be taken, right? So this was with respect to opening balances. Now is consistency of accounting policies. So you all know that when we talk about accounting policies, we always say that auditor will obtain sufficient appropriate audit evidence whether the accounting policies are consistently applied, and if no, if any changes are there, whether the same are properly accounted for, presented and disclosed as per the applicable FRF. Simple, right? Now is the conclusion part. Okay, so first of all, the conclusion with respect to your accounting policies. So if the auditor, concludes that the accounting policies are not consistently applied, or there is a change in accounting policy and the same is not accounted for or properly disclosed or presented as per the applicable FRF, what is the auditor going to do? He's going to give a qualified opinion or adverse opinion in terms of SS 705. Now, what is qualified opinion? What is adverse opinion? That we are going to study, or you will be studying when you will be doing chapter number 8, right? Then, with respect to opening balances, again, if the auditor is unable to obtain sufficient appropriate opening evidence with respect to opening balance, let's say he's not able to obtain any audit evidence, sufficient appropriate audit evidence with respect to the opening balances, he's going to give qualified or disclaimer of opinion as per SS 705, or where he concludes that the opening balance have misstatement that materially affect the current period financial statement, then he's going to give a qualified or adverse opinion in terms of SS 705. So SS 705 me you are going to study in detail, but for the purpose of understanding this particular topic, I'll just tell you that what is this qualified. So when I write this qualified or disclaimer, this is what qualified opinion or disclaimer of opinion. ठीक है, and where I am writing this A, this is adverse. Q stands for qualified only, and this is adverse. Okay. So students, see, when the auditor is unable to obtain sufficient appropriate audit evidence, that audit evidence only he is not able to obtain. He is not able to conclude as to whether, there is a misstatement or not. So inability to obtain sufficient appropriate audit evidence will call for what? Qualified or disclaimer of opinion. And whether it will be qualified or disclaimer of opinion, it depends upon whether that matter is having an impact on the financial statement as a whole or not, right? Or right. So auditor is going to consider that. Same way, when the auditor concludes that there is some misstatement, right? Now, here also auditor may give qualified or adverse opinion, and whether it will be qualified or adverse, it again depends upon the pervasiveness of that matter, that whether it is having an impact on the financial statement as a whole. It will be material, then only auditor is giving a modified opinion. But whether it is pervasive or not is going to determine whether it will be qualified or disclaimer, or in the other case, whether it will be qualified or adverse. And do not worry about this. In chapter number 8, I'm sure that this topic is going to be like with respect to qualification of the report, that is qualified report, adverse report, or disclaimer of opinion. I'm sure that this topic is going to be very much clear to you. So with this, we have finished up with essay 510, but let me just take you through the entire essay once, so as to, just revise the entire essay at one glance. So essay 510 is with respect to initial audit engagement, opening balances. It deals with auditor's responsibility relating to opening balances when conducting an initial audit engagement. Initial audit engagement means either the financial statements of prior period were not audited or they were audited by predecessor auditor. Opening balances means the account balances that existed at the beginning of the period, and we all know that they are the closing of the last year plus the accounting policies that were followed last year. Also, opening balances include the matters that require disclosure. So the matters that existed at the beginning of the period that required the disclosure. So matters can be contingencies or commitment. Predecessor auditor, so now you all know. So what is the objective? With respect to opening balances, so with respect to board to obtain sufficient appropriate audit evidence, opening balances that they do not contain material misstatement that could materially affect the current period financial statement, and accounting policies, whether the appropriate accounting policies are reflected in the opening balances, they are consistently applied in the current period, and if changes are there, whether the same has been adequately presented or disclosed as per the applicable FRF. With respect to opening balances, whether correctly brought forward or not, then accounting policies correctly reflected or not, and performing one or more of the procedures. What are those one or more of the procedures? That whether prior period of financial statement, if they were audited, then perusing, that is reading the copies of audited financial statement and the relevant documents. Then whether current period financial audit procedure provide the audit evidence relevant to the opening balance or specific procedures are to be performed. If auditor, obtains audit evidence with respect to the opening balance that they contain misstatement that materially affect the current period financial statement, he'll perform additional audit procedure to determine the effect on current period financial statement. If he concludes that there is a misstatement that materially affect the current period financial statement, communicate with management and those charged with governance. Now, what are the factors that are going to impact the nature and timing of procedures to obtain audit evidence with respect to opening balances? So, what accounting policies are followed? What are the nature of account balance transactions? Whether that opening is relevant to the closing. So, let's say during the year, as such, opening balances were not relevant. They are not, being included in the closing, right? So, whether they have an impact or not. So let's say all the opening have been, let's say, they were in the form of debtors and creditors, whereby you are able to see that, okay, that 5 lakh debtor was there, that same has been, received. 10 lakh creditor was there, the same has been received. So as such, they are not having an impact on the closing balance. And the last point, whether the prior period financial statement were audited. If yes, the predecessor auditors ka report, right? And the prior period financial statement were audited by predecessor auditor, then the you know the general rule is what? Ordinarily, the current auditor can place reliance on the closing balance contained in financial statement. But if there is any, possibility of misstatement in the opening balances indicated, he is going to, consider that. IT, please don't admit this student, Garima Vikrant Singh. Hmm. And for the current assets and liabilities, he may perform the procedures. So we have seen the case of debtors. However, in case of inventories, the auditor may have to perform the procedures, right? Same way with respect to non-current assets and liabilities. Now, consistency of accounting policies relating to opening balances may, again, we have seen that if auditor concludes that consistency is not there and or changes are there, the same has not been disclosed, then qualified or adverse. Same way with respect to opening balances, if he is unable to obtain sufficient appropriate audit evidence, then qualified or disclaimer as per SS 705. And if he concludes that there is a misstatement that materially affect the current period financial statement, then qualified or adverse opinion as per SA 705. So with this, we have covered SA 510 initial audit engagement opening balances. I hope it is clear to all of you. Send in your replies. Send in your replies. Then we'll be starting with SA 550, related parties. So Tanu is saying clear, Priyanka saying clear. Students, other students, please also reply. Rajita, please reply. Dhanush, Kevin, Julie. Julie saying yes, ma'am, understood. Kevin saying yes. Priyanka saying yes, ma'am, clear. So chalo. Let us start with essay 550. So I hope you are enjoying this chapter because all practical based and very, easy, practical and interesting also. So the next is related party, essay 550. Okay. So Priyanka is saying yes, ma'am, I'm enjoying. So that's good. Enjoying the audit subject is, I find it rare from students to say this, but if you are enjoying it, that is really very motivating for us also. So that's good. So related party, essay 550. So we have 20 minutes. I'll try to finish up with the essay. And in the next session, before I forget, I'll be starting with essay 520 in the next session. So I'll be starting with essay 520. So a request to all of you that before coming for the next session, you should have gone through essay 520. And whatever we have covered, that too you are supposed to do. Okay? So essay 550 is what related parties, right? Now, SA 550, it deals with the auditor's responsibility regarding related party relationships and transaction. So students, tell me, let's say you are conducting the audit of ABC Limited. Okay? And while you were, performing risk assessment procedure, while you were performing the further audit procedure, you found that there are various related party transactions. See, tell me, when you find that there are a number of related party transactions, will you straightforward give a modified opinion? Or will you straightforward, give uh, uh, an opinion that financial statement do not reflect a true and fair view? Send in your replies. So thank you, Priyanka, for your words. So tell me, you saw that there are a number of related party transactions. Will you straightforward modify your opinion? Thank you, Tanu. So Priyanka is saying we need to check the details, right? So see, the related party transaction, it does not mean that the transaction, it is not implying that the transactions will be wrong only, right? So why is there a separate essay with respect to 515? So first and foremost, the related party transaction are such that one party is able to, have an influence or control over the other party, right? Now, the nature of related party transaction is such that there can be an influence of the decision, there can be manipulations, there can be fraud, there can be. It is not mandatory, but chances are high. So that is why the auditor, this is in fact one of the significant risk, right? So that is why the auditor has to devote his time. He need to be alert. He need to apply professional skepticism, and he need to be, perform more, more audit procedures with respect to such related parties. Okay, and that is why we are studying essay 550, right? So it deals with auditor's responsibility regarding related party relationships and transactions. Related party relationships, if there is any related party, and the transactions that have occurred during the year. And it also applies with relation to the risk of material misstatement associated with related parties. So I told you that the nature of related party is such that the risk is going to be high because chances of manipulation is high. Why? Because both the parties are related. So if they intend to manipulate the things, they can, right? So first of all, let us, so I hope this is clear as to why we are studying this essay 550. ठीक है. So you all are correct. So students are saying that ma'am, we will not modify your opinion straightforward. We'll verify them. That is absolutely correct. ठीक है. So students, the Zoom chat is enabled. You can send in your queries here also. Right? Now, let us try to understand as to what is meant by related party in terms of essay 505. So, essay 505 says, we are on page number 4.92 of your module. Definition of related party. So, a party that is either related party as defined in the applicable financial reporting framework. So if the applicable financial reporting framework contains the definition of related party, that will be considered, right? Or where the applicable FRF establishes minimal or no related requirements, if such definition is not given, then the following can be considered to be related party. So what is that following? A person or other entity that has control or significant influence directly, indirectly through one or more intermediaries over the reporting entity. So let me just explain this with the help of example. So the following shall be considered as related party. So it says that a person or other entity that has a control or significant influence over the reporting entity. So let's say C is the reporting entity, C is our client. Right? So who will be considered as related of C, related party for C? A and B. So it says that a person or other entity that has control or significant influence directly or indirectly. So let's say A is the holding, B is the subsidiary, and further C is the subsidiary of B. So directly or indirectly through one or more intermediaries over the reporting party. So in this case, for C, B as well as A are what? Related parties. I'll read the definition again. A person or other entity that has control or significant influence. What is meant by control, significant influence? I'm sure you all are aware, but what is given in the essay, we'll just discuss. Directly or indirectly through one or more intermediaries over the reporting entity. So for C, B, and A are what? Reporting related parties. The second clause says another entity over which the reporting entity has control or significant influence directly or indirectly through one or more intermediaries. So this is, if you just look at the same example, now here what has happened is A is the reporting entity. A is the reporting entity means what? Just a minute. So A is the reporting entity, right? And it says that another entity over which reporting entity has control, significant influence directly or indirectly. So for A, the related party will be what? B as well as C. So if A is the holding and B is the subsidiary of A and C is the subsidiary of B, then both the companies, that is B and C, they become related party for A. Is it clear? Yes, Tanu, you are correct. So if the accounting standard contains the definition of the related party, then that will be considered. If that definition is not there, let's say with respect to partnership firm, if that definition is not there, then consider this criteria. The last says another entity under common control, another entity that is under common control with the reporting entity through having common controlling ownership, owners who are close family members, and common key management. So it says, let's say B is the reporting entity, right? So B is the client. So who all will be considered the as the related party for B? A will be considered, but that will be by virtue of the earlier two, any of the earlier two clauses. Now, with respect to this clause, it basically says that another entity that is under the common control. So C is under common control of A with B, right? It says another entity, so C, that is under common control with the reporting entity. So reporting entity is B, through having common controlling ownership or owners who are close family members or common key management. Is it clear? Are the three clauses clear? So let me just take you through the module once. So it says a person or other entity that has a control or significant influence directly, indirectly through one or more intermediaries. So here I gave you example of ABC, whereby C is the reporting entity. So B and A becomes related for C. In the other case, I gave you example of ABC, where the situation is say that A is the holding of B, B is the holding of C. But here the reporting entity becomes what? A. So for A related is what? B and C, right? And here A is the holding for B and C. So it says if B is the reporting entity, then C is become what? The related entity of B, because they are under the common control of A. Is it clear? Simple. Okay. Now, students, see, many of the entities are under the common control of, let's say, state government or national government, right? So they are under the common control. So will they be considered as related? So the answer is no. They will not be considered as related unless they engage in significant transaction or share resources to a significant extent with another. So let's say Delhi government, there are certain companies. So will they be considered as related? Answer is no, unless and until they engage in significant transaction or they share resources to a significant extent with one another. Is it clear? So such an exception is not there in case of the which is not concerned with, let's say, the company under the control of the state, be it national, regional or local government, right? So the companies, the entities that are under the control of the state, they will be considered as related if and only if there is what? Significant transactions, or they share the resources to a significant extent with one another. Is it clear? Now, what is meant by control and significant influence? So, see, control means that the entity has the power to govern the financial and the operating policies. And significant influence means the above says what? Power to govern. And significant influence means what? The power to participate. So here the final say is that of, let's say, A and B. If we are talking, A is having the power to govern. So the final decision making is with A only, right? And significant influence may, though A can participate in the, decision making, but the final say is not with A, right? So they have what? The power to participate in the financial and operating policy decisions of the entity, but is not control over this policy. So control is the power to govern the financial operating policies of an entity so as to obtain benefits from the activities, and significant influence means power to participate in the financial or operating policies, right? Now, what are the examples which indicate that there is control, there is presence of control and significant influence? See, if any entity is having direct, indirect equity holding or financial interest in the other entity, right? So the way we have discussed about your holding subsidiary joint ventures. So here is what? Presence of control or significant influence. So we are discussing about both control and significant influence, or vice versa. The entities holding of direct, indirect equity or other financial interest in other entities, right? Then anyone who is a part of those charged with governance or key management, that is those members of management who have the authority and responsibility for planning, directing, controlling the activities of the entity, they will also be considered to have a control or significant influence. Okay. Then any close family member of the person specified in B. So if any close family member of any person specified here, that is those charged with governance, scheme management, hana, members of management, so that will also be considered to have control and significant influence. Or so here it was what close family member of person referred in 3, and it says having a significant business relationship with person referred in 3, right? So business partner or any such significant business relationship is there, then also they will be considered to have a control and significant influence. Is it clear? Is it clear? And then related parties with dominant influence. So where because the related party are in such a position that they can exert dominant influence over the entity or its management. So they have a complete, you can say, influence over the entity and its management decisions. So that will be considered as related party with dominant influence. Is it clear? Is it clear? Now, students, if you remember, we have discussed about special purpose entity. So I gave you example of northeastern the companies. Let's say there is any company in the northeast state, and there they are, let's say manufacturing iron steel, and for that they need any they have incorporated a company. So the purpose of this is to provide electricity for captive consumption of that particular company only. So electricity they are generating, 50% of the electricity will be used by that company only. So that company is incorporated for special purpose. So that is why the term special purpose entities. So it basically says that with respect to special purpose entity, it might be possible that there is, no control, no substantial control, but the entity owes little or none of its sorry, because the entity may have the substantial control, though the entity do not own any of the equity. So it's basically says that maybe the equity that has been owned in the special purpose entity, that is very less, but their impact, their control, let's say on the entire working of that company, on the, let's say the sources of raw material, where the supply of the electricity will be there, on those matters maybe there may be substantial control. So that will also be considered to have a substantial control, though the equity part is very little. Is it clear? Is it clear? ठीक है. Now, students, when I started the related party relationship and transactions, this essay discussion, I told you that as such, we as auditors, we do not have any issue with the related parties, right? But the nature of related parties such that there, the nature of related party relationship and transaction is such that it gives rise to higher risk of material misstatement, right? So that is why, we have to consider as to whether we have to, devote our more time and energies towards checking these related party transaction. Now, as I can see, many of you are writing that, ma'am, now it is getting that you have already done 2 essays today. So I'll do one thing. I'll not take up any further important or heavy topic with respect to this essay. I'll complete this essay in the next session. But yes, I would like to discuss this topic on page number 4.96. So it basically says that what are the documents from where the auditor can see as to who are the related parties. So during the audit, the auditor should maintain alertness for related party information while reviewing records and documents. He may inspect the following records or documents that may provide information about the related party relationships and transactions. So these are the various line items, 12 line items. So I am giving you this topic as a homework as to what all documents the auditor can go through in order to see as to whether a particular party is related or not, right? So I'll do one thing, essay 550, I'll stop here only because the topics that are left are important and I do not want to, finish them up in a hurry. And we are left with only 2 or 3 topics with respect to essay 550. So in the next session, which is scheduled for 28th March, I'll be completing essay 550, and then I'll be starting with another important topic, essay 520, analytical procedures, right? So that's it from my side. Let me just have a quick look at the queries that you all might be having. Quickly send in your queries. So Tanu is saying, ma'am, you explained it very well. So everything seems easy. So Tanu, thank you for the motivating, appreciating words. Yes, Dhanush, I'll definitely revise the entire essay 550 in the next session. But since many of you are saying that, ma'am, now topics are getting heavier for you for today's session. So I'll stop here because the two topics that I want to cover with respect to this topic are important. I do not want to finish them up in a hurry. So please send in your replies if any. So I think everything is clear to all of you till where we have covered. So students, before coming for the next session, you are supposed to read till page number 4.94. Along with that, a homework that is on page number 4.96, right? And this is about what we have already covered, except for essay 530 that I'll be covering in the session scheduled for 2nd April, right? Now, in the next session, essay 520 will be covering in detail, and it is a quite lengthy essay. So just go through the pages so that you become familiar as to what we are going to study, right? Kevin, I'll take up your doubt in the next session, right? So students, thank you for being patient listeners, and thank you for making this session interactive. So Kevin, I'll definitely take up your doubt in the next session, right? So thank you, students, and see you on 28th now for the next session, whereby we'll be completing with essay 550 and essay 520. So thank you.
Thank you, Nancy ma'am, and thank you, students, for your participation. Students, tomorrow is the last webinar on auditing and ethics, and the topic will be audit of bank and audit of different types of entities. The timing will be 3 p.m. to 5:30 p.m. So please do join that. Thank you all.
Okay. Thank you, Ankita ma'am. Yes, yes. So thank you. That's it for today.